Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Punk Rock Horror Podcast BandShowCase episodes. Today I had Devin and Justin from Bury Mia from Denver, Colorado come on and talk about their band and about their music and their latest album that they came out with. So the reason you're seeing this on your feed today instead of the first Wednesday of November, because we do normally release these episodes on the first Wednesday of every month, is because Bury and Mia actually are having a really important show coming up this Wednesday, so tomorrow, with Corey Graves at Herman's Hideaway at 7 p.m. here in Denver. And when we do these interviews, we always try to promote every band's and artist's projects that are coming up, whether it's an album release or a show that's coming up. And seeing that this is their most coming up show that they're going to be doing, we wanted to try to get this episode out and try to get some attention to it and attention for the show before it's too late. So if you're here in Denver this Wednesday, go to Herman's Hideaway and check out Bury Mia, who are supporting Corey Graves. It's supposed to be a great show. It's at Herman's Hideaway. It starts at 7 p.m. All right, guys, let's jump right into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Punk Rock Horror Podcast. This is Matt. I am with Justin and Devin from Bury Mia here based in Denver, Colorado. How's it going, guys?
It's good, man. How you doing?
Good.
So this is pretty exciting because you guys reached out to me, and I was actually really humbled because you guys have been listening to our content, and you're just like, oh no, for hard enough for you guys, and I'm like, nonsense. You guys are dope enough. Come on, we're gonna put you on the show for sure. Like, there is no criteria of how hard you are. So the fact that you guys reached out to us, like, that means a lot to us and humbles us. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I've been listening for a while, and
Well, thank you.
it's great. I like
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He even told me this for months, so this is like a thing for us. To, come do.
You just found out as I walked in. You're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. But no, we're not super hard. We're definitely more on the flaccid side, I would say. But
Yeah, I was listening to your album actually that you came out with. Is it self-titled or is there a title to it?
it's Take This With Alcohol.
Okay.
And,
Perfect.
Yeah, it's kind of the part one of a part two series, and so that the next part will be coming in the next couple months. We'll see.
Yeah, I was listening to it, and it's actually like very cool. It gives me a very like early, and I do mean this in the highest compliment possible. It's like a very early 2000s, maybe kind of like Unwritten Law type of feel, like when they're a little more unknown, and that's really cool because I actually am a huge fan of Unwritten Law, and so like when I heard your music, so like songs like Stereos and String Theory, like that hit with me instantly, and I'm like, oh man, nostalgia. Like, these guys are good. Like, you're very catchy, you make very catchy music, and I like that because you definitely need that, especially when it comes to even the punk scene, which might not be your influence or where you're going towards, but you have a very catchy, like, nice sound to you, and I like it. So all regards and compliments to you, definitely.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you.
We appreciate it. We do. We really appreciate it. It means a lot.
That's kind of what we're going for, is that whole, early thousands kind of, not necessarily hardcore, but not completely like, I don't know who to compare it to.
Yeah, I mean, the word that I'm using now in my head is dadcore. Which to me is like all of these like musicians from my influences, which is like all those, Unwritten Law, Brand New, Blink, Rancid, but they're all dads now. All these guys like fucking Mark Hoppus are dads now, and I don't know, I dig it. It's cool.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But speaking of like bands to compare to, which I've said on this podcast before, is that I don't like using bands to describe another band's sound, because I feel like that puts an up and coming band a little bit of like disregard, because it's like, oh, they sound like Coheed and Cambria, because it's not really still specifically talking about a band's sound. Yeah. So, but I do understand that we have to do it that way in order to kind of sell and promote what a band sounds like. Because, before this, I used to be in a lot of bands, and so for me, like, I hated having to, like, compare whatever band I was in at the time to whatever thing we sounded like. Probably the, like, one I hated the most would be like, we kind of sound like Guns N' Roses. So, I hated to say that one once. I had to scrub my teeth out. But enough about me. I want to know about your influences. What influences Bury Mia? Like, what did you guys bring into when making this band?
Basically, it was me and Justin were in a band before, and just trying to take what we had with that band with the other two musicians that we were with, and build upon what we made there and try to make it better, and refine the sound, because the sound that we had in the prior band was all over the place. We had a singer that wanted to do heavy metal that was into, like Avenged Sevenfold, and a guitarist that was heavily influenced by Motley Crue.
Oh, okay.
He lived, died by Motley Crue.
So we're talking like old Motley Crue, like Girls.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, all of that. I mean, you take him, and many of them compared him to Bret Michaels because he wore a bandana on stage, long blonde hair, gorgeous hair. But yeah, those two guys, and then me and Justin that were more into, pop punk and punk.
Right.
All that infused, and it didn't sound very.
It wasn't
very
your style.
Good. Yeah, it was a two mix of styles. So me and Justin ended up coming together, and after that band split, we formed Bury Mia and just try to refine the sound that me and him actually liked.
Was there one particular band in general that you really took some inspiration from, or did you just hit it like, man, let's make some music that made us fucking jump and inspired us?
I wouldn't say I even like, and I've probably written most of the songs. I know Devin has some songs in there for sure, and we have drummer and bassist. They all kind of come in and they influence a little bit, but most of it's just I can really only write one type of song. I don't have like a lot of direction as much as that's just what comes out sometimes. So a lot of it will be that like pop punky feel with a little bit of grr. You know what I mean?
No, I feel like doing a heck and bamboozle.
Yeah,
that was like probably the worst joke I could have related to. That I'm sorry.
That's right on. Right the fuck on.
You're gonna make a song now, just called "This Is Heckin' Bamboozled."
I'm down.
Okay, done.
I'm down.
You leave. We're gonna work on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Bye, guys. This was great. Check out Bury Mia. So Bury Mia, where did the name come from exactly?
You want to share this or me?
Yeah, I mean, were you at a practice?
We were going to a show.
Okay, yeah,
we were going to a show. We were coming from Snarf's in his Mazda, and we were just talking like, hey, what if this band falls through? What if this band falls through? And so me and Justin were just like, we need a backup, I guess. And so, hey, if this band ever falls through, let's start a band called Bury Mia. And me and Justin like, Bury Mia live. What would you say if you saw this band live? You'd say Bury Mia live. And that is literally just the basis for our name.
Yeah.
That's a mad respect. I respect you guys for doing that, because I always respect a band who knowingly picks like a name that they know like haters are going to easily hate on, but it's also like fun to have fun with. So, like, I respect you guys for that, because I feel like you have so many bands that come out with a name that just has to be taken serious. And I even had this similar conversation with the band Chiaroscuro, the guys from there, where it was like, there's always going to be a band that's like dying fetus of abysmal death, or like super black pit of despair. But like when you can actually have fun with your name and you can actually have fun with the music that you're doing, I feel like that brings out an entirely different energy from a crowd that you don't normally get.
Yeah.
More associated with what you guys have already stated, being more pop punk. Which brings up another question I want to ask you guys is, throughout history and throughout years, when it comes to punk and pop punk, there's always been a friction there, and I think that's fair to say, because if you have a kid or friend or just anyone who's a fan of Blink-182, and then you on the opposite side if someone's a fan of the Casualties, those two tend to not mix. You would maybe have an elitist from the Casualty side, so you'd be like, oh, that guy is like, he likes Blink-182. How can we take anything he says seriously? And then you have Blink-182 fans saying like, I just like Blink-182. Like, why can't I like it?
Oh yeah.
Have you faced any of that type of friction or criticism?
Not too much. We haven't played with too many heavy punk bands.
I think we've been lucky so far that the promoters kind of, they kind of get it to some degree, and so they put us with similar. But we've been playing a lot of shows at Trailslide Saloon, and their scene is very, very much more in the hardcore punk scene. Actually, even much more in the metal scene. But they're super respectful, so it's gone pretty well.
They're super nice dudes up there. The promoters from Swinging News Productions and all that, they're great guys. They've always treated us well, and no matter if we play a show with less hardcore punk, but we played a couple with some ska type bands and metal, and those guys are welcoming as shit.
That's awesome to hear. I know Trailside has a bit of a popularity here in Denver and Colorado. I'm sorry, I'm burping from the beer that you gave me.
It's good. It's good beer. That's a good time to bring up the name of
the Odd 13 Brewing Company that made a Humulus calicumber or calecumber.
Kale
has this dope hop monster with like a
cucumber dick
vine beard.
That's a free promotion for Odd 13. We could use a sponsorship here and there, but
shout out, yeah.
Honestly, based on their design, I think they'd be into it.
I know.
I think they would.
And we should reach out to them. You guys should also sponsor Bury Mia.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I just like for the podcast specifically, I went and got a bunch of beers. We got that one, and then this Melvin 2x4 with this wood guy sawing off his own arm. I felt like that's like right along the lines of.
I appreciate you grabbing those type of beers too, and it was just like, oh man, like my cold dead heart beat a little.
And it's almost Halloween, so why the fuck not?
Exactly, perfect excuse. Perfect excuse, perfect reason. Sorry, perfect excuse for drinking.
We've been drinking beers, everyone.
So speaking of things coming up, and things from past, let's first talk a little bit on the past. Let's talk about your album that you came out with. We already kind of touched a little bit on it. I touched a little bit on the songs. My personal favorite so far is Stereos. I've listened to that song a lot. That song is it's really catchy and it's just really uplifting, and I like it. And I don't know if it was generally meant to be in an uplifting manner, but I like it because of how catchy it is and just how energetic it is. It really takes me back to, again, those early 2000s days, and that's, in my opinion, that's something huge because there's so many bands that try to encompass a style from a certain time that they either hit on too much, like, bands like Greta Van Fleet, or miss it just a little bit. You know what I mean? And I think you guys are in that perfect area of where you bring in enough influence from it to make it your own style. So let's talk about the album. What was that like going through production with it?
By production, in this particular case, we mean in my basement. Doing a lot of this stuff. We did in a lot of pieces and parts. We're the kind of guys, unfortunately, we have a lot going on, so it's a lot of, hey, when can you be here to do your part? And then, the next week, hey, when can you do your part and stuff. So a lot of this was recorded in pieces and parts and put together over the course of time.
So, was there any like hills or barriers that you ran into with production? Obviously, you said, you guys, had to get parts in here and there. Was that the biggest like barrier you guys had to learn to overcome, or was there just one song that was taking, this huge frustration just to get it done?
I guess it was more along the lines of lineup. In the beginning, it was just me and Justin. We had a couple songs, looking for guitarists and bassists and drummers or whatever we needed to fill the slots. And we came across two dudes that are no longer in the band. We still love them. They're still great guys. But they parted ways, and then we found more people slowly along the way, and just recording a song here, and then someone leaves, and then trying to find someone to record the next song, and then someone else leaves. I left myself. I took a year hiatus for my son's birth, so I was there for his first year. Thank you. So I took a hiatus, so that kind of put them on the back burner for a little bit. I know that he himself couldn't find anybody to fill any slots, and eventually I obviously came back, and now we're just trying to hit everything full force.
Right on.
New drummer, fairly new lead guitarist, so just trying to come in and go out strong, I guess.
Did you want to give him a shout out?
Yeah. Love you, Curtis. I love you, Darren, all the way over there in Oklahoma.
Yeah, this guy was living in Oklahoma.
Oh, my God.
5 hours away in the Panhandle.
Right.
Driving up for practices and shows.
Wow.
And then, like, heading back.
And then heading back in the night. Like,
Damn.
he'd come up, play the show, be like, all right, guys, I gotta go. And then drive all the way back to Oklahoma.
Damn. That's some dedication.
His dedication.
Like, respect.
Yeah.
Shit.
Cool fucking guy. And then shout out to Curtis because he's going a long way in his wildfire fighter career.
Okay.
So shout out to you, buddy. I mean,
Yeah, so that's why he ended up pulling out. It was just he had to actually go.
Yeah, he had a
legit job saving people's lives.
That's not a. I gotta go. Mando. You gotta go handle the fry. I gotta go handle the fryer. I literally gotta go fight a fire. Yeah. Like one that's destroying things.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
Yeah. Well, great session, guys. Great.
Coming full of tire roll.
I wish we'd be able to like record like if he was on a fire, we like go up to the mountain. Like bring our stuff, like record a song, like in between
on
fires.
Scene, just fire around.
That'd be pretty a badass way to like introduce you guys into a show, right? Is like have him in his like gear and like maybe have him bring up a couple buddies and act like there's an actual fire, and then you guys are the fire. Like
what?
I'm entirely sure they would think there was a stripper.
I was as you were saying, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, there's the people that would take it seriously, then the people that are like, ah, shit, we're gonna get a strip show.
and then you get that section of people that are like, all right, we get a strip show.
Old ladies in the back, woo!
Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean that's dope. That you have a guy who's coming all the way from Oklahoma, just get some tracks and make the shows. Like that's awesome. And then you have a guy who's literally fighting fires. So it just kind of shows that music and punk reaches no bounds, but all bounds.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
So
no doubt.
Do you guys have any up there? So you said you're coming back full force with this. So do you have any upcoming events or releases that you want to start talking about?
Yeah. I don't know when you're gonna plan on releasing this guy. I don't know.
So you guys will be our November release. So you'll be coming out. I'm sorry, I'm burping again because I'm here.
Yeah, no,
Excuse me.
Yeah, so we're doing, and it'll probably be past by the time we release it, but we had a really great show on November 1st with Michael Graves. So that's like our big thing that we're prepping for right now. He's coming in. I think it's like a 20-city tour or something like that.
Yeah, it's the Annihilation Tour, something like that.
We could probably get this episode out before then. I don't see any reason why not.
If you can, it's cool. If not, no big deal.
I don't know. Michael Graves is a pretty big deal. I think so. I think there might be some elitists out there who argue with me, but whatever.
Yeah, we played with him last year, and we talked to Herman's Hideaway, who's hosting the event.
All right.
Like, come back. I almost think we got on the first show because of the Bury Mia name. Them maybe just thinking that we were horror punk.
Right.
Kind of like a mistake.
And we have those roots, but they're not, probably as prominent as a lot of the other bands that are playing there. So
yeah, no, I mean, I was surprised by your sound too because I thought Bury Mia was going to be a little more like what you said, horror inspired, and I was like, oh snap, and I mean that in a good way. I really do. Trust me. So you said that the album is a part one of a two-parter, or is it?
Yeah, two-parter.
Yes, sir.
So can you talk about what's the plan for the second part?
So when we, I guess, all tighten our sound and get these songs that we're working on for the next coming EP, when we could tighten them down, we're gonna release that one. At least start recording before we release it, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. We're working on a song right now called "Death by Misadventure."
Okay.
That's a little more on the serious side. I would say generally a lot of the songs are a little lighter. They're more on the happy side sounding, not necessarily in topic.
Right.
But this is a little heavier. I have way too much experience with friends like trying to kill themselves and ending up in hospitals as a result of like taking pills and drinking alcohol and stuff like that. So this particular song is really more about dealing with that situation kind of as an outsider. Someone that went to the hospital at 2 a.m. when they ended up there and trying to like kind of be there for them while they're in this like state, like they put activated charcoal in their stomachs and they're hooked up to machines. And I don't know. It's all very kind of surreal experience.
I'm so sorry. That was disgusting on my end. I apologize. No, that's really deep, and I, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that hits home with me because I've been through some similar experiences, so I understand where you're coming from on that end. So then, these two albums, they're not as much as a concept, or would they be more of a concept?
I'm going to say it's probably it's more of a concept from the perspective of the titles.
Yeah, the titles.
So, I don't know if you're ready to release that yet.
Yeah, we can.
If you want to.
The first one is Take This With Alcohol. The second one we're going to do, we're still debating, album cover. But second one's going to be And Sleep It Off.
I mean, you could always do a Dick Cucumber.
We could do a Dick Cucumber. That'd be great.
They have to tell me to do less dick jokes on stage.
We do. We have at least 2 songs that have dicks in them or about them.
That's hilarious.
I don't know if you heard In Morning.
I think so. I was re-listening to your album again today, and I did listen to it. Actually, no, I did listen to it again. But anyways, I apologize. Go ahead.
No, but there's a dick-based theme
in the chorus.
In the chorus of that song. So.
I'm gonna re-listen to it now and actually listen closely because I guarantee I never picked up on it beforehand. I probably thought it was like, oh man, this is probably something really deep and like very meaningful. And I'm listening and be like, this is totally like about dicks.
It's about dicks.
Actually about dicks.
But that's just really funny because like I just have this image like in my head of you like turning Justin and be like, dude, cut it with the dicks. Like you just gotta like you're up here with the dicks. You gotta bring the dicks down here. You're a little too hard with the dicks. You gotta make them a little more soft.
98% dicks. We need you at least 33.
At least throw in a vagina joke. You gotta throw it off.
Even it out.
Like, come on, man. They were just the people are just they were all about dicks.
I mean, you give this guy a dick costume, he's gonna go on stage with a dick costume.
I mean, you kind of have to.
No, there's like kind of a weird joke, but it's mostly true that most of the songs get written with like more funny like lyrics about like dicks and buttholes and like hanging out with my bros and we're fucking each other or whatever. But that's usually where they start, and then I'll come back and replace them with actual lyrics later on.
Well, that's hilarious.
You got to write something to get your harmonies and your music going, and
you
then
got to find that stake.
Yeah, and actually put the reel in there.
Yeah, you got to find that state. I mean, I don't know why. It just makes me think of like I don't know if this is true, but apparently like the lead singer from Mumford & Sons will actually like sit on the floor naked in order to feel vulnerable enough to write. And I'm just like, this is such the cheesiest way to ever write ever. I feel vulnerable when I'm naked. And so coming here and being like, we kind of base it around dicks when we write.
Yeah.
Like,
and based on their songs, I'm just imagining him laying on like a really fuzzy carpet and then dropping acid.
See, mine's the opposite. I think he's fully sober and he's on like a cold floor, so he's uncomfortable. So he writes those like weird, sad lyrics.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's not your fault but mine. I lay on the fucking ground naked.
I don't know. If there's a band that you want to make love to in that like rock arena type spectrum of music,
right?
Kings of Leon is that band.
Oh my god.
Absolutely that band.
I don't know if you've heard this rumor, but I heard their sex is on fire.
There is a pill for that, and they need to be more responsible.
That song's probably about dicks. That's all I'm gonna say.
It's dicks. It's straight dicks. I can use some buddies about dicks too. It should have been Kings of Dicks, not Kings of Leon.
Or Dicks of Leon.
Dicks of Leon. Or Leon's dick. Oh man, if they for every reason decide to listen to this podcast, they're gonna be so mad.
God damn it, they're making fun of our band with dicks.
We're serious, okay?
Simple cereal.
God. Oh man. So I want to take it back to your album you just came out with. Do you have any songs that are your favorites on there that you loved recording or that you just in general loved making?
Yeah, I mean, I love Stereo. Stereo's, you were just talking about it.
Right.
Stereo's is one of those songs, it came to me and it was done in probably 3 minutes from like kind of concept to just being done. It came out, it was fantastic. It's one of those songs, it speaks to me in that it was originally supposed to be about the bands that I used to listen to and kind of how the music these days just in some ways just doesn't live up. It just doesn't give me the same thing in my heart. And maybe that's more of an age thing. Like you're like in that young teenage, like 16 to 20 stage where things are really impressionable, and that's probably part of it. But that's kind of what that song's about.
Yeah. No, I feel you. Well, what about you, Devin? Do you have any?
The songs, I mean, Stereos is probably the one that hits the best. That's the one that we try to promote, and it's the same feeling that I get from that song that Justin has, that when he wrote it, I kind of got that feeling from. That or Daisy Come Home. Daisy Come Home really hits home for the sake that it's Justin wrote it about an F. Scott Fitzgerald book by the name of I don't know if you've heard of this, but The Great Gatsby.
What is that?
I don't know. I think it's a book, came out in like 2006.
It's like a really.
I've heard people talk to me about that in some book called Of Mice and Men.
Oh, what the?
Like, who would make a song about mice and like a book about mice, or even a band about mice? That's
God.
The song is really about one of our old friends' exes that would just come in like a tornado all the time, like drunk and a mess and all sorts of nonsense.
Real catch.
But yeah, that F. Scott Fitzgerald's in spirits, it's in there.
Right on. So I feel like Stereos is probably the song that our listeners should check out. If you're cool with them checking out after the end of this episode.
Absolutely.
So, before they even head into Stereos, how would you describe it to someone who hasn't listened to it yet? And what is the meaning behind Stereos, if it's okay I ask?
You want to take the lead on this, Mr. Songwriter?
Yeah, I mean, it's like pop punk, but it's a little more on the quick, fast side. It's kind of relentless, right up until like a big drop in the interlude. Like I said, it's about wishing that the songs from the 2000s were back in there. If you are very clever, you can actually pick out lyrics that I took from other people's songs.
Oh, really?
And kind of shoved in there, and then kind of took my own play on them. But a lot of it's, there's like some hidden Green Day, Weezer, Taking Back Sunday references in there. That if you know the bands, their songs, you'd probably figure out where that's coming from.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if you've ran into this, but I've always kind of hated the criticism towards bands where people say, oh, they take too much inspiration from this or too much inspiration from that, or, they sound too much like this. Like, to a point, I can understand their criticisms about that, but, as a former, person who used to be in a band, when you're writing songs, when you're making music, it's almost impossible not to take something similar from someone else, whether it's intentional or not. How do you go about overcoming those self-doubts or even those criticisms, if there's have been any?
I think as long as you're not, like, as yourself, not trying to copy that band exactly, be like, I really like Green Day. I want to be just like Billy Joe. Right. And so you're looking, acting the part. As long as you're not trying to write your own material and front as a Green Day cover band, basically. Right. I think you're all right. I think, everyone draws inspiration from anything. And me and Justin especially, we've written songs to where I was just like, no, that's a brand new song. And he's like, no, it's not. And turns out, it's the same basic chord structure, and we've had a couple.
There are only so many chord structures.
Exactly.
By the way,
and a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people are like, "Oh man, they're not fresh enough." Well, what do you want them to do? Hit their guitar with a cucumber and tinfoil? What are they supposed to do?
I could do that.
Speaking of dick jokes, and then you come out with this ridiculously huge guitar.
I think that's what this beer is doing. Is it is making us talk about cucumbers and dicks.
You're just talking about dicks. This is not the dick interview.
But yeah, just like you were saying, you try to come out. You just try to be yourself. Yeah. And at some point, I think early bands especially can suffer the most from seeming something like something else because they haven't really figured out who they are as an individual yet. So that's something you develop over time. I don't know what else to say about that.
So speaking of early bands, what is some advice that you would give to any of our listeners who want to start a band or get more serious about their music career? What is some advice you would give them?
It's time. It's a lot of time spending on your practice, your instrument, man. It's just get to know your instrument. Before you even write songs, just start practicing songs and eventually that will kind of bleed into your own creativity, and just dedicate some of your time to your band. That's one of the big downfalls of a lot of up and coming bands is they just don't dedicate the time. They expect, I'm gonna play the Fillmore, but I don't want to put in the time to play the Fillmore.
Right.
So that's just, meet your dreams with what you're capable of. It definitely takes time. We've been a band, for not 5 years now. It's
3 years.
3 years. 3 years now, and we're just releasing our first EP of 5 songs.
Right.
So we're just kind of feeling our way. We're not a new band, but we're not too well established. But just focus your time into the band, no matter what. Treat it as a part-time job.
Yeah. I would say be bad.
Be bad.
Be horribly bad. I think people come in and they want to,
be great,
own it, and just be the most amazing guitarist, or be able to play the songs that they're the people that they look up to are playing. But generally, those guys have been playing longer than you have if you're starting off. So be bad. Bother your parents. Write horrible shit, because being bad for long enough becomes being good.
Yeah,
that's just that's just what I feel like it is.
I think that's from both of you. That's really great advice. And I actually going to touch on it real quick because Devin, I like yours a lot because I hear and I read so many articles about established musicians like David Draymond from Disturbed, or I forget, there was another artist that was talking about it, and I forget who. It might have been James Hetfield from Metallica, and they're basically saying you have to put in all your work and you have to put in all this time and you have to make it a priority. And I think that's not a bad thing, but I do think for certain people that sets them up for failure with their bandmates because, like you guys said, you had to come in and record certain parts because you're busy. And so treating it like a part-time job is just as good as treating it as a priority. Saying it's a part-time job doesn't make it any less important, but be able to have that room to be like, hey, I still have to go to work today and still spend time with my family. Can, record tomorrow for an hour or two, or maybe even 3. Having that flexibility, I feel like makes a band work so much better. Because if it's always rigid and always stern, it's going to break eventually.
Oh, yeah, definitely. If you have, as well, bandmates that, are understanding and, almost in the same boat as, time and dedication to, said project.
Yeah. I mean, and you got to find guys that have the same time devotion that you do. Yeah. If you're the type of guy that needs to practice 4 times a week, you probably want to be in a band with, similar guys that can also pull that off.
Right.
You don't want to be in a band with guys with 3 part-time jobs and a family. That's just not going to work. So if you can make that work.
And then Justin, with what you said about being bad, that's probably also one of the best pieces of advice I've ever heard, because we've all ran into that where we, are starting out and we're playing and we're like, oh man, I'm totally going to be the next Hendrix, or I'm totally going to be the next Slash, or the next Hammett or whatever. And you set up yourself to be something that you're not meant to be. And that's not a bad thing to say, because you should always kind of strive to be your own type of, player, whether it's guitar, drums, bass, singer, whatever. And so to accept the fact that you're going to mess up and that you're going to be bad at some of it a lot of the times, and some of it not a lot of the times, I think is a really good mentality to go in with, because you got to accept that you're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen, and I don't think that's talked about enough when it comes to being in a band or being a musician, is being okay with your mistakes.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And we run into that even just with recording, because the recording is never going to get to that 100% place.
Right.
You're because if you start at 90% and then you make some adjustments, you get to 95. Yeah. You can keep doing that for the rest of your life. So at some point you have to say, okay, this is as good as I think it needs to be, and kick it off into the world and hope that it's something good.
Well, and obviously, when the album is always going to sound more professionally done, because it's done. Mm-hmm. It's done. No one ever really looks at the process of it, like having to redo a riff or redo a lyric, 100 times until it's just right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we're getting to near the end of this interview. The last question I'm going to ask you guys is, do you have any crazy stories that you're willing to share with our listeners that shows that you've played or have attended?
There's a couple with this band and the prior band.
I know you lost your shoes at Riot Fest. Was it your shoes or your hat?
I lost my hat and one of my shoes at System of a Down.
That's expected.
And it was pretty sad. I was sad about it, but I was like, I mean, when everyone's jumping and yelling pogo, you're not going to go down and get your hat.
No. I bid it now.
It's like...
I think if you end up with all your clothes at the end of being in the pit at any sort of a metal, punk, heavy show, you probably fucked up.
You're part of the band now. You're part of the band now.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much. Another one was we played a 7th show, and there was this gentleman, or I guess person, in the audience, and they didn't have, I guess, a sexual identity.
Okay.
So, Justin was referring to him. He's like, hey, this guy knows what's going on.
Oh.
And then so he said, oh, I'm not a guy. And that minute was the longest minute of my life. The whole show was silent, and we were just sitting there like, and I was like, fuck, how do we come out of this? Like,
you're like, God damn it, Justin, I told you to cut it with the dick jokes.
Oh man. And they were dancing, like that's something I always look out for, is like that, the person that's dancing bigger than everyone. So I wasn't like trying to call them out per se. It was just
but
like,
this dude was definitely, he was
I know
going
you're
for it.
enjoying this.
Right.
Like, I want to bring you into this experience and kind of say like, hey, I appreciate you. And I totally just missed the mark on that whole thing.
Did he ever say like what he wanted to be, or she, or wanted?
No, I guess we didn't really, talk to him after the show. We didn't see him after we loaded out.
Well, and it was the singer to one of the bands that was like up next after us.
Oh,
so even worse than that one. It's the lead singer to Flower Me a Queen, or Flower Crown Me a Queen, which is like a folk punk band.
Okay.
Pretty cool, but very different than us, obviously.
Yeah.
If you want, you're welcome to apologize to them on here.
Flower Crown Me a Queen. I believe it's Dahlia. We apologize and we love you and we're sorry.
Mistakes happen. So it's, like we just said, expect to be bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
So yeah, we're 35 minutes in, about 36. This has been an awesome interview. Time's flying by. And I'm all out of questions. This has been so fun because a lot of bands I talk to, it's usually over through Skype, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But to be able to sit down with the band face to face is an experience that I also enjoy having. So thank you guys for welcoming me into your home, for the beer, and for just an awesome interview. Thank you.
Thank you, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that being said, we are going to have this podcast be over.
Over.
Exactly. He gets it. All right. Podcast over, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Right. There you go, everyone. I had a blast hanging out with Justin and Devin and getting to know them, drinking beer with them, and talking about the pop punk and their, Phoenix rising from the ashes story with getting Bury Mia started and off the ground. It was a blast, and yeah, I have nothing else to say but that they were totally great guys. The band is awesome, and their latest album is great. So with enough being said, let's jump into their song, Stereos.
Sky morning, staying up with the bills on fire, you say. Standing on your head, you can pay this shit tomorrow. I've said too much and I don't belong here. I've said too much and these feet do wonder someday. All day, we're here to the very end. Another monkey at my back again. We're here till the very end. I'm not sorry. All the stereos are rotting in the basement. 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 always, always. We're here till the very end. Another monkey on my back again. We're here till the very end, and I'm not sorry. All the stereos are rotting in the basement. 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 Rolls on. I know who can take me home all night as I've come undone.